clear and consistent. We have always advocated for de-escalation and immediate cessation of hostilities and a comprehensive ceasefire, holding of meaningful negotiations that address mutual security concerns within the framework of the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, and adopting a path of inclusive and constructive diplomacy involving key regional and international stakeholders to promote trust and build confidence to pave the way for a just and lasting peace. Istanbul talks must be built upon and taken forward with genuine and reciprocal commitment to peace. Pakistan reiterates its firm support for a peaceful resolution of this conflict and stands ever ready to support all efforts towards that end. I would now resume my functions as President of the Council. Colleagues, the representative of the United States has asked for the floor to make a further statement. I give them the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Materials and components supplied by China are ending up in Russian weapons, which Russia is using to strike Ukraine, killing civilians and destroying infrastructure. If China is uncomfortable being mentioned in our remarks, it should stop enabling Russia to prolong the war. China has said many times that it wants peace. I urge China to bring its actions into line with its words. China's direct actions supplying Russia with the materials it needs to carry on the war make peace difficult to achieve. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United States for that statement. I will now give the floor to the representative of China, who has requested a statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think in my response just now, I made it very clear. Security Council has not imposed the sanctions on parties to the conflict. China maintains normal trade with Ukraine and Russia. It is not in violation of international law, nor does it breach any international obligation. The U.S. is also conducting trade with Ukraine, so why can't China do that? It is totally normal trade. Actually, it is not China who should feel uncomfortable. It should be the U.S. who feels uncomfortable. In this very chamber of the Security Council, the U.S. keeps on slandering and smearing other countries and accusing other countries. Shouldn't you feel out of tune with the rest of the members here? To resolve the Ukraine crisis, what needed is unity and cooperation rather than division or confrontation. I once again urge the U.S. representative to stop attacking other countries and stop scapegoating other countries. Instead, you should focus on working more for diplomacy, to work more for peace and talks for peace and for ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank the representative of China for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Security Council is meant to meet and discuss real problems, threats to international peace and security. And the name of the real problem is written on that country nameplate, Russian Federation. There are no two parties attacking civilians. There is one country, Russia, one problem for peace and security in Ukraine, in our region, and globally. Just last night, on the eve of this meeting, Russia unleashed yet another ruthless assault on Ukraine with 309 UAVs and 8 cruise missiles from different directions. As of now, 11 people were killed in the attack on Kyiv, with the death toll rising and one child among them. Another 135 civilians were wounded across the capital, including 11 children. Ukraine has requested the presidency to convene a separate Security Council meeting to discuss these real attacks on peace and security. Let us be clear here. Today's meeting, convened at the request of the Russian Federation, is both cynical and morally repugnant. The very state that launched the largest war of aggression in Europe since the World War II now attempts to portray itself as a victim of so-called Western interference. This is not only a grotesque distortion of reality, which is used by the Russian state for years, it is also an insult to the multilateralism, to the United Nations, to the principles enshrined in the Charter, to all of you, distinguished members of the Security Council. But above all, to the memory of the tens of thousands of Ukrainians who were killed as a result of Russia's war of aggression. We should make no mistake, Russia has no genuine interest in peace. If it did, it could end its war at any moment. But instead, it continues to pursue conquest, domination, and the total destruction of a sovereign state, Ukraine. Let us also recall the basics. In this century alone, Russia has invaded Ukraine twice. First in 2014 with the illegal occupation of Crimea and parts of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Then again in 2022 when it launched a full-scale war of aggression. These actions represent blatant violations of the UN Charter and the core principles of international law. You all agree to that. At this very moment, Russia is still trying to illegally occupy more Ukrainian territory. It bombs cities, targets civilian infrastructure, kills innocent people every single day. It has staged sham referenda, denied Ukraine's sovereignty, and works openly to erase our independence and statehood. And yet, while committing these egregious violations, it dares to accuse others of undermining peace. Mr. President, simultaneously, the Kremlin continues to fuel its war of aggression and draw other actors into its campaign of terror. Since 2022, Iran has supplied the Russian Federation with hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles, flagrantly violating Security Council Resolution 2231, while its restrictions remained in force. This impunity for gross violations of international law by both Russia and Iran has emboldened others, particularly the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, to exploit the situation and advance their own destabilizing agendas. Since 2023, the regimes in Moscow and Pyongyang have significantly deepened their military and military technical cooperation, including unlawful arms transfers and the reported deployment of North Korean military personnel in support of Russia's armed aggression against Ukraine. Russia's war machine is now being sustained by Iran and the DPRK in direct violation of multiple Security Council resolutions and the foundational norms of international law. It receives drones, missiles, and ammunition from these regimes, as well as dual-use goods and equipment supplied by Chinese companies. This enables Moscow to prolong its war and escalate the suffering of our people. We continue to recover foreign manufactured components from Russian missiles and drones used to strike our civilian infrastructure. This stark reality highlights the urgent need for coordinated international action to halt the flow of materials and technologies that fuel Russia's armed aggression. Mr. President, let us speak plainly about Russia's true motives. Its war of aggression is not about so-called protection of Russian-speaking population, denazification, or demilitarization of Ukraine. And it is not about NATO. Russia claims it invaded Ukraine to prevent NATO expansion. Yet by its actions, it has achieved the opposite. Russia now shares hundreds of kilometers of new border with NATO. And of course, it is not about so-called security concerns of the Russian Federation. Because what security guarantees are needed for the largest nuclear-armed state in the world, whose officials have repeatedly threatened to use these nuclear weapons against Ukraine and other states. At its core, this war is about the survival of the Kremlin's authoritarian regime, which has ruled the Russian Federation with an iron grip for over a quarter of a century. It is also about imperialistic ambitions of Russia, which tries to eliminate Ukraine as a state from the political map of the world and to destroy Ukrainians as a nation. Faced with the domestic stagnation, a shrinking economy, demographic decline, and rising political dissent, the Kremlin chose war as a tool of distraction and repression. Russian justifications for the war we have been hearing since 2014 are pure lies. What Putin and his regime truly seek are consolidation of power, violence, absence of freedom in Russia and in the countries bordering with Russia. And this is why Russia is consciously continuing this war, losing every day over 1,000 of its own soldiers on the battlefield. Overall, it has already lost over 1 million soldiers. Moscow regime doesn't care about them and is ready to sacrifice even more of these very reasons. Distinguished members of the Security Council, the Moscow regime will not stop on its own. Left unchallenged, it will continue down a path of killing and destruction, aggression, occupation, rape, torture, the deportation of children, and the systematic violation of international law and the UN Charter. We will continue to defend our people, Ukraine's sovereignty, and future of our children. We seek a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace, grounded in the principles of the UN Charter, and nothing less. We repeat, a full, immediate, and unconditional ceasefire is essential. It is the first step to halting Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. Peace will not come through appeasement or equalizing the aggressor and its victim. It will come through unity of the free world, determination, and justice. The UN Security Council has a critical role to play here. Its voice must be strong, its stance unmistakable. This war must end, peace must prevail, and international law must be upheld, accountability served. Without such clarity and resolve from the Council, no combination of pressure, sanctions, or military support can deliver durable results. A just and lasting peace begins with a firm and unified message from this body. That is why we call on all members of this Council to support a French-initiated resolution calling for a full, immediate, and unconditional ceasefire between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. A ceasefire that would apply on land, at sea, and in the air, creating the necessary conditions for peace in accordance with the UN Charter. Now is the time for this Council to come together and to demonstrate the unity and resolve needed to help end this war. In the meantime, we are profoundly grateful to all our partners and allies. Your military support is not only a lifeline for Ukraine, it is a defense of international law and the rules-based order, where aggression is not rewarded. There is only one path to ending this war. Russia must be pushed back, economically, with strong sanctions, politically and militarily. It has to be demilitarized. This country is a threat to all of you. If we fail to stop Russia now, its armed aggression will not end with Ukraine. Others will be emboldened, and the world will become a far more dangerous place for us all. We also must make sure that existing sanctions are enforced. How is it possible that Russian individuals under sanctions, those who directly support and enable this war, are still flying freely and participating in international events as if nothing happened? What message does that send to the aggressor and to the victims? Mr. President, at last week's Security Council meeting, the Russian Federation said nothing about ending the war, not a single word. Instead, it obsessively fixated on Ukraine's internal affairs. Today, it pretends talking peace with one hand and killing innocent civilians in a sovereign state with another. This obsession is revealing Russia cannot stand Ukraine's development, democracy, language, or identity. Its goal is to destroy everything we have built. We often hear, no one will win this war. We see it differently. International law must win. The UN Charter must win. The principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, inviolability of internationally recognized borders, and the independence of states must win. Because if Ukraine's borders are not secure, will yours be? This war is not only about territory. It is about domination, repression, and fear. The Moscow regime's insatiable hunger for occupying foreign lands exposes its deep-rooted greed. Despite Russia being the largest country in the world by landmass, it still fails to provide basic well-being and security for its own people. and cannot manage its own territories, many of which are in state of decline. Do not fear Russia. Do not let yourselves be misled or manipulated by its propaganda and paralyzed by its threats, including the rhetoric you have heard also at today's meeting. The only way to end this war is to confront its cause, Russia's aggression, with unity, resolve, and action. Let us make sure that a year from now, we are not gathered here to count more victims, but to mark the restoration of peace, justice, and security, not only for Ukraine, but for the entire international system. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Ukraine for the statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. Colleagues, before adjourning the meeting, as this is the last scheduled meeting of the Council for the month of July so far, I would like to express the sincere appreciation of the delegation of Pakistan to the members of the Council and to our colleagues in the Secretariat of the Council for all the support that they have given us throughout the month. Indeed, it has been a busy month and one in which we rallied to consensus on several important issues within our purview. The Council also unanimously reaffirmed and upheld the purposes and principles of the Charter and our commitment and support for peaceful settlement of disputes. We could not have achieved all of that without the hard work, cooperation, and positive contributions of every delegation and the very efficient assistance of the representatives of the Secretariat, including the technical support team, conference services, officers, interpreters, translators, verbatim reporters, and the security staff. As we end our presidency, I know I speak on behalf of all colleagues in the Council in wishing Ambassador Eloy Alfaro de Elba and the Panamanian delegation good luck in the month of August. The meeting is adjourned.